He separates. He's to the 20, to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown, Florida State. Warwick got up third down.
Winky wants to throw the knockout punch to Warwick. Warwick open. Touchdown. He did a touchdown. He did catch it. Touchdown, Florida State. Oh, Peter Warwick, how'd you do that? Kermit Whitfield to the left side. A hole to the 30. Kermit Whitfield to the 30, to the 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, FSU. Kermit Whitfield, a 100-yard touchdown. Here's the snap. Winston rolling right. Throws the pass on the other. It's caught. It's caught. It's caught. Touchdown, FSU. Kelvin Benjamin.
We're doing it for everybody. We're doing it big all over the country, all over the world. And I'm proud. I'm proud to say I'm a Florida State Seminole.
This is the Garnet and Old Podcast with your hosts, Ryan Eastman and Vince Ciccarelli.
Thursday night, a Garnet and Old, a really special occasion. We do have Vince here. Usually it's me and Vince, but Vince is on the road traveling to take his daughter to college. So he is going to be here from his car, but no video tonight because that would not be safe. But we have a lot of special guests tonight. So I'm going to go around the room, introduce yourself, tell the people watching where they can find you and how they can watch you.
You want me to go first, Moen?
Yeah, let's do it. Go.
For one thing, I can attest that Moen is the most arrogant Buckeye fan. So that is true. His name and title is absolutely fits him. My name's Nathan Bomber Brown. I go by Bomber online, and I have a couple of shows called the Big 12 Mafia Show and the Holy Rivals Show. They're both on YouTube. And we basically cover all things college football and then the Holy War with BYU and Utah. So there's a lot going in college athletics right now, and realignment's definitely part of that. And I'm glad to be here with Ryan and Vince.
My name is Moen. I hate Notre Dame. I hate Jack Swarbrick. I hate Greg Sankey. I hate ESPN. You can also find me on Nate's show from time to time talking about the things I hate. You can find my YouTube brand Moen Vision on YouTube, and coming soon, Moen Sports. And yes, the title is correct. I am the most arrogant Buckeye fan. Several Notre Dame people felt the need to DM that to me after Greg Pflugart's show today.
That's fantastic.
And I'm going to bring Vince off of mute here for a second. Vince, how are you doing today, my friend?
Hey, thank you, Ryan. I'm going to try not to cause any accidents around me here, but today's a big day. We're taking my baby off to school. And just wanted to chime in every now and then on the show. So looking forward to it.
And Vince, just so you can be safe and not, run your vehicle off the road, because that would not be a good thing on the way to taking your daughter to college. I'll just specifically call on you. That way you know when you're off mute, all right?
Roger that.
All right, very cool. So some big news today. We have a ton to talk about tonight. If you have any questions while we're talking about these things, pop it in the comments. We'll try to bring you up on the show and answer any questions people have. Well, let's get right into it. So today I've been texting all day. I've been in DMs all day. And what I can say is things are heating up for Florida State specifically and the SEC, not the Big Ten, the SEC. So from what I've been told and what those around me are hearing is that Florida State and Clemson, there may be others, so those are really the only two I have inside info about, are very, very in-depth talks to join the SEC. Now, there's a lot of things that would have to happen for that to actually make sense. But what's really amazing is that we're hearing that the Big Ten has basically succumbed to, hey, we understand that Florida State and Clemson are going to the SEC and have ceased any kind of serious conversation. So I'm gonna start with you, Mr. Bomber. The real question of the day, will FSU and Clemson end up in the SEC?
So what was it, 3 weeks ago when this first came up, I think you and Vince brought it to our attention. Maybe it was a full month ago that this could be happening. You were hearing things and we were started to track it at that point. I actually had always thought that they would end up in the SEC. Other people like this guy right here,
Yeah.
that actually it was going to be the Big Ten. So at the end of the day, they were both circling. There's nothing about being right or wrong there. It's just which makes more logical sense. And while it would be great if the Big Ten could reach into the Southeast, I mean the SEC is like a Great Wall of China. Try getting into it. Try burying yourself on the backside of it, and that's really what that would have been. So at the end of the day, do they move now? That's the only question I have. I think eventually they do, but is it in 23? I don't know. I think this might come around again next year.
What about you, Bone?
I say the hen is the smartest animal in the barnyard because she waits till she laid the egg before she cackles there. We have to see Florida State pull the trigger yet. I've been told by 3 people, check the Board of Trustees site over the next 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That was about 36 hours ago. So we're still waiting for Florida State. Does Florida State pull that trigger?
That really is the question. I mean, it comes down to one thing. Will FSU announce that they're leaving the ACC before August 15th? And I'm going to bring Vince in. Vince, what do you make of all this talk regarding FSU and the SEC?
Yeah, I missed that. Sorry. I've always been a proponent of the big, you know that. And it's kind of petty of me, but that's the way I felt. And the more it's leaning toward the SEC now at this point, I mean, we've always said from the very beginning the SEC is the better cultural fit. And there's there's a lot of benefits to doing that. I still can't foresee the SEC kind of eating their hat a little bit and making it happen. So we'll see what happens. But, that's what you're hearing today. I've heard a couple of similar things. We'll see where it goes.
Perfect. And I will say this, the August 15th date for everyone listening, super important. And I've been told without hesitation, and this is like people that don't run things every day, don't post stuff every day on Twitter. They're very careful that before the 15th is happening. So really what that means is either tomorrow or Monday. You're not going to get the announcement over the weekend. They're not going to do a board of trustees meeting or any kind of official announcement over the weekend. So
right.
The 24-hour notice that Moen, has been made aware of as far as watching the board of trustees meeting, absolutely. I think it could be Friday. I think tomorrow is more likely than Monday. But the real question is, I mean, do you believe that Florida State is going to announce before the 15th, or does this carry on a full year? Because they have to wait a full year if they do not. Let's go to you, Walmer.
At the end of the day, that 15th is it's the Damocles sword sitting over the neck of the ACC, and I don't know if they're going to be able to pull it off or not. I just think there's so many complications, and yeah, they can get the money to do it. I said, what was it, Vince? I said $500 million, right? And everybody thought I was joking, and no, I was a serious, educated guess. I thought it might be $500 million to get out. And the thing is if you can get something for 50 cents and they're trying to renegotiate it and say, I want to now make $1, but you can't force me to, then why wouldn't you stay at 50 cents? They have no incentive to break the thing up. ESPN, I think at this point, especially if the Big Ten's pulled out, I don't know what the incentive is to move as far as ESPN is concerned.
Mo, what do you think about the 15th? Do you think
I mean, could it happen? Sure. ESPN likes money. I think the people at ESPN have at least enough intelligence to see which way the wind's blowing. It's not a matter of if. If FSU pulls the trigger, the ACC is dead. I don't think you can backfill with Stanford, Cal, and SMU.
Right.
You're going to lose schools like Miami. You're going to lose UNC. You're going to lose UVA. You're going to lose Virginia Tech. You're going to lose North Carolina State. There is no backfilled conference that exists that adds any that's going to be a valuable property to ESPN. So if ESPN is going this route, they're basically saying we are all in on the SEC. And that's it. I mean, I don't think that there's enough of an ACC left to to rebuild as the quote unquote power conference.
Well, and that's the big piece is if it does happen, you're going to lose teams to the Big Ten. You're basically going to give them a free exit. They don't have to pay a Gore fee. They don't have to do anything.
Yep.
I'm telling you right now, the Gore. I'm going to have Bob Thompson on my show tonight at 8:30 Eastern, and I'm going to ask him this question: what is the incentive for ESPN to break up a conference that they already have at a cut rate?
And Bomber, why don't you tell people why Bob Thompson is a really smart individual to answer that question?
Right. So Bob Thompson came out when it was announced that UCLA and USC were leaving last year in July. He posted a comment. Nobody knew who he was except for people that knew stuff. And he said, hey, this realignment stuff's going to get kind of crazy. And he mentioned 4 things that were important. He mentioned how rabid the fans were, brand value, the market you're in, and rivalries, right? And all those things are in currently the ACC. So I don't understand why he's this master of realignment. He's an ex-president of Fox Sports, negotiated over 200 media deals with all kinds of entities around the world, international as well. And I'm going to ask him this point blank. After I ask him about the Holy War, I'm going to say, so this thing with the ACC, is there any incentive for ESPN to do anything but hold pat and say, you want to leave? Give me $500 million.
And real quick, mention where they can hear that interview, literally right after this show.
Yeah, it's going to be at 8:30 Eastern on my show. It's actually going to be on Big 12 Mafia. Just look it up on Twitter, or you can find us directly on YouTube. I'll be simulcasting it on Your College Sports Connection, which the Garnet and Old is a partner in that enterprise. And please come. You don't have to do anything but just sit there and listen to Bob. We're only going to ask him questions. But the guy is absolutely the godfather of all this stuff. And I invite all your listeners to come over and watch it live. And if you can't catch it live, come over and watch it on recording. But there's going to be some really good questions, and I hope that he's able to answer them.
Awesome. And before I bring Vince on, because I do want to hear if he thinks it does happen before the 15th, real quick shout out, friend of the show, Cole. He goes by No Gifts on Twitter. And if you're watching FSU football at all during the season, you know that at No Gifts has the best in-game gifts there are. So give him a follow because it's fantastic. I just wanted to shout him out. Vince, I'm going to bring you back on. The 15th, man, does it happen? Does it not?
Here's the thing, Ryan. If it doesn't happen, what was all the buildup for, right? What was all the the verbiage and the we need to get out and all that, and what was it for the Board of Trustees chair to say we'll be back with you sooner rather than later, right?
I have a guess, Vince. I think I know why.
Yeah,
it's the same reason the president of Colorado stormed out of the PAC meetings. He put down a gauntlet and said, hey, you show us the media deal or we're leaving, or whatever. Right. And I think they were trying to leverage the Big Ten to come in and get more from the SEC.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some piece of that where you're kind of like, I'm gonna show my ass here a little bit and we'll see what happens. But as far as the fandom is concerned, they've riled up the entire fan base for that, and they're expecting something to happen by the 15th. I don't, and I think if they don't, there's going to be quite a backlash from our own fan base about that, and rightly so. So my question is, let's just say they're going to announce something before the 15th. Is it worth it to announce, hey, we're announcing right now that we will be leaving this conference to be out of this conference for the 2025 season?
Vince, just to me,
I don't think that's
I don't think it's impactful enough. I don't think that what we saw in the Board of Trustees meeting, right, when all this broke, was unprecedented. I had never heard a Board of Trustees. They knew what they were going to say. It was 100% obvious. It was kind of funny because a lot of people were like, wow, they sure did talk about it. Yeah, they sure did, because they knew what they were going to say. This was not a shock statement. And then Drew Weatherford, who is on the board, who made those inflammatory statements during the Board of Trustees meeting, went on and did a sit-down interview with War Chant today. So if you check, it's up on their website. He did a sit-down interview, Drew Weatherford did, and went even further on some of his comments and what he was saying about this. So I just have a hard time believing that there's all this smoke and there's no intention to announce. I do believe they were going to announce. I don't know if it'll be for the 24th season, but I do believe that they will announce, and tomorrow is more likely than I think on Monday. One thing I do want to bring up, though, is a really weird piece of this puzzle. And Bummer, I'm really interested to get your take. What is the whole SMU Cal Stanford thing about, man? Like, what is your 10,000 foot view on this?
I think that they're just, they're desperate. Notre Dame, and Moen can probably speak to this better than I am. I'll give you a short answer. My answer is that Notre Dame is throwing its weight around and basically saying, hey, we are Notre Dame, let in our friends. And the SMU thing's just a tag along that carries no weight. I think actually they don't want SMU to come because it's kind of embarrassing that you're letting somebody buy access into your conference. It kind of makes everybody look goofy. But I mean, whatever. They get in, they don't get in. It doesn't really matter at this point. It's all about Stanford. And I saw a comment, and I'm not sure if this is the reason, but somebody said on Twitter, Stanford or Notre Dame doesn't want Stanford to lose its its P5 status. Because now all of a sudden, if they're in a G5 conference, when Notre Dame plays them, they lose all their gravitas. It doesn't matter how good they are. So it's all about Notre Dame, and I'll leave the rest to Moen. He can tell you.
Go ahead, Moen.
Right. This is 100% Notre Dame's bull crap. They want to prevent the ACC from imploding because they don't want to join a conference.
Right.
That's all this is. Take Cal and Stanford. ACC said, okay, become a full member. What did Notre Dame do? Oh, we don't want to do that.
Right.
You guys take Cal and Stanford. You do this favor for us, and we do nothing for you.
Exactly.
And I guarantee you, if they would just agree to do that, Cal and Stanford would have had every vote today. It's the same thing with the Big Ten. If they agreed to join the Big Ten, Cal and Stanford would be Big Ten members tomorrow. This is all Notre Dame trying to protect their independence. Because the Big Ten is going to 10 conference games. They're probably going to start freezing Notre Dame out to focus on conference games for their media partners. So Notre Dame's just trying to keep their independence and prevent the inevitable. I will circle back. I think if Florida State did this, I think the Big Ten really would still be the winner in all this. And I know I'm saying that as a Big Ten homer, but they really had no – I mean, yeah, they would prefer to have Florida State, but it was a no-lose situation for them. If they get Miami, they get one school in Florida. That's what they wanted. If giving Florida State and Clemson to the SEC gets them UNC, which has been a prize since Jim Delaney was the commissioner, that, they would be happy with that. I mean, they wouldn't be as happy, but they'd still be happy. And at the end of the day, Notre Dame's going to have to make a decision if they want to play big boy football or they want to be a snowflake and schedule a bunch of G5s.
I could tell you as an ACC fan, not an ACC fan, a Florida State fan in the ACC, Notre Dame has been messing with the league for years. And it's so annoying because they're a conference member, partial only in football, but apparently they get a full vote in conference. We're just sitting here like, did Swafford at the time just say whatever you want, Notre Dame? Let's just open your arms, whatever you guys want. Literally, what he did with the ACC is bend them over and let Notre Dame do whatever they want to do. Because in this situation, all Notre Dame wants to do is help schools that are beneficial to their own realm without giving anything themselves. And I promise you this: Florida State and Clemson and Miami and North Carolina, they're not sitting in there saying, this is a great idea. Like, let's make this happen. I guarantee you they're in the meetings laughing and saying, like, what are we doing here? Like, I don't understand. And what's more interesting is I've heard that tomorrow there's going to be a follow-up meeting from the meeting that already happened with the presidents talking about the same teams join the conference. The only way I could see even having a chance of happening, 2 reasons. One, the slim chance that Notre Dame says, sure, we'll join the conference. I think that's near impossible. 2, ESPN, in coordination with the SEC and ACC, is making a deal in which Florida State and Clemson can join the SEC with less of a buyout or less of a financial hit to join the SEC, and at the same time are negotiating to bring some teams in to replace Florida State. You're not going to replace them with these kind of brands, but in numbers, replace them with other teams that would still make a competent conference, and Notre Dame could still play all those teams. So that's the only way I see this happening, really, is if ESPN, ESPN and ACC and SEC are kind of working on this together. Do you guys agree with that?
I think if that happens, it's a disaster. The ACC, if it doesn't explode, it will lose all its gravitas. It'll lose all its definitely they won't be considered the number 3 conference for certain. And who knows if they're even, the 4th, depending on what happens with the American or whatever. I don't know. I think this is doomsday scenario. This is something that ESPN did to themselves. They wrote these contracts, and these conferences gave their lives away, just like the Pac-12 did. They signed their lives away to these forever agreements that have almost no value by the time they're done for a short-term gain. Nobody's thinking down the road. So if what you're saying happens, Ryan, I think it's a bad day for college football.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that you, me, Mo, and I would assume you agree, and I'm bringing Vince on in a second to give his thoughts. I don't see any way that these teams ever end up in the ACC. Do you agree, Mo?
They might end up in the ACC, but if Florida State and Clemson leave, there's no way that North Carolina and Miami and whoever is sticking around or voting those schools in.
Yep.
They're leaving too.
Yep.
I mean, you might have an ACC with SMU, Cal, and Stanford, but I don't know who the biggest brand left in that conference is.
Yeah. Let me bring Vince in here. Vince, I know you might be having some. He's muted himself.
No, I'm back. I'm
There
back.
you
Well, I'll tell you, 95. There's some interesting internet pockets here.
Vince, what do you think about the SMU, Cal, Stanford?
It's
situation?
ridiculous, right? It's ridiculous. And I broke my own rule today, and I engaged a Notre Dame fan, and it's unbelievable the amount of just holier than thou, pun intended, that goes on there. How in the world do they have a full vote in this conference? I started my own hashtag today. Oh no, we've been Swafford again, right? So I want to make sure all of our fans, all of our watchers, start pushing that out there. Oh no, we've been Swafford again. I cannot believe, and please, Florida State, Clemson, Miami, whoever the no votes are, stand your ground. There is no reason why an organization that doesn't really care about the conference has any say in the conference. They have to stand their ground and say no to that. If Stanford and Cal and SMU for some reason join the conference, great. ACC, have a good time. I hope that Florida State is not a part of that.
100%. So I know, Bomber, you have a hard limit, and Mo, and we're going to get into Florida State topics after 7:30. So I want to make sure while you two are still in the chat that we get to this question. So I want you, and again, you don't have to have any inside information or anything, just your personal feelings. Before the 15th, does anything happen with Florida State? And in the big picture, where do you see these teams ending up? All the teams involved that we've been talking about, what do you see happening? What's your 10,000 foot view on what's going to happen here? Bomber, let's start with you.
I think eventually the ACC is going to blow up. If I had to guess when, I'd say before 2026. But do I think it's this year? I don't know. I really can feel Vince's frustration with the way that this has been managed and mismanaged by the PR and administration for the school. Haven't heard much from Clemson, but boy, if there was all this smoke and then nothing happens, it will not be good. It'll just burn like embers throughout the football season. And come next June, July, it will be Pac-12 doomsday times 2. It'll be an explosion. So I still don't think it's going to happen this year. And as far as where Stanford and Cal end up, I think Stanford is going to end up either getting bailed out by the Big Ten, or he's going to go independent, and then Cal's going to end up in the Mountain West or the ACC. It could be AAC. I'm sorry, AAC.
Yeah.
It could be AAC.
And to answer your question, Cole, the reason that we don't think that that's possible, what if FSU and Clemson make a deal with ESPN to vote for Cal, Stanford minutes in exchange, to go to the SEC? The only reason I think Moen brought up the best point, which is if Florida State and Clemson left, the remaining power members in the conference that are worth anything are gone too. They're going to find a landing spot. So at that point, the ACC would be worthless to ESPN, and it wouldn't even be worth bringing in those schools because all the best schools would be gone. All right, Moen, let's get your prediction. What do you think happens?
I think Florida State, if they don't pull the trigger this year, this is when they have the most leverage. It is with the pack exploding. I mean, This is the moment. Florida State has to pull the trigger this year. You can't wait till next year. You don't know what's going to happen next year. You might not have any leverage next year, so you pull the trigger this year. Where they end up, they could end up in the SEC. That's a very likely scenario with Clemson. I think the Big Ten's happy either way. If ESPN gives them a soft landing, I think Fox and the Big Ten are going to let ESPN know that they're also going to have to give what they want a soft landing. Greg and I have discussed this at length on the phone. Greg Flugar at Peek Around the Corner. SEC eats first, but the Big Ten gets their fair share. So
I love it.
You're going to see probably teams like Miami, North Carolina, University of Virginia, possibly Georgia Tech in the Big Ten. Stanford and Cal probably do end up in the Big Ten. I think at the end of the day, they're rushing to 24. Notre Dame's going to have to make a choice. They either stay independent or see if they can work some kind of special deal with the Big 12. But the Big 12 can take a look at how that's worked for every other conference they've ever done this special deal with and see how well,
Absolutely.
that always plays out.
And Vince, let's get Vince's take. What happens, Vince, overall? What do you got?
I have a feeling this is going to happen on Monday. And I think they are going to announce it, but I don't know that they're going to have all the detail behind that, like what's going to happen. So they're going to, I believe they're going to make the announcement on Monday. I just cannot for the life of me feel like, or get on board with the fact that they brought all of that chutzpah up to the line, and they're not going to push it across the line.
Nice. So real quick, I want to allow our friends who joined the show to go ahead and again, let them know where they can find you, because you got some shows coming up. I really appreciate both of you. For all fans, stick around. Me and Vince are going to have another 30 minutes where we're going to talk about, practice and camp and all that fun stuff. So let's start with you, Bomber. Where can they find you? And I can't wait to see your show later tonight, man.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Thank you. I appreciate your time, Ryan. Thanks for having me on. Got 2 shows. They're both tagged underneath my name right now. They're Big 12 Mafia and the Holy Rivals. You can find them both on YouTube. And it's getting to be like it's almost a daily show now. I never intended that to be, but there's been so much going on. And then tonight at 8:30 Eastern, we got Bob Thompson, retired president of Fox Sports, on the show, and we're really looking forward to that. So thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And Moen, where can they find you before you guys sign off?
You can find me over on Nate's show most of the time complaining about stuff. But do tune in there tonight. I just want to thank both you and Vince. Nice to talk to people from a fan base who've actually done something since 1988 and have been productive conference members pulling their weight, unlike some schools out there that I won't name.
Yep.
I won't name any names, but it's Notre Dame. So go Buckeyes. Maybe we'll see Florida State in the playoffs this year.
There you go.
I hope so. Well, guys, it's been a pleasure. You guys be well. We'll see you next time, and I look forward to watching your show tonight.
All right. Thanks for having us on. Appreciate it. Peace out.
Thanks,
See ya.
guys.
And I'm going to bring Vince in. Let me unmute him. Hey, Vince, welcome to the FSU portion of the Garden Old Show.
Yeah, the FSU portion. And in case you didn't know, our fans probably know that the team was over in Jacksonville today.
They sure were.
Over in Ryan and I's neck of the woods.
Absolutely. And hot day of practice in Jacksonville. Vince, I don't know if you can actually see our graphics, but I got our topics here. So one of my favorite things coming out of today was Mike Norvell's quote, which I have up on the screen. During practice, a breeze blew over the field, and Mike Norvell screamed, "Go away, wind."
Nice. Yeah,
he wanted it humid and hot.
He wanted a pressure cooker is what he wanted. He got it. And I don't know that it's really any hotter in Jacksonville than it would have been in Tally. But, taking the team on the road and getting them out of their environment and putting them in basically a sauna, it's what you got to do. You're trying to create diamonds here, right? And pressure creates the diamonds.
Vince, what do you say? Iron sharpens iron?
I have often said that, but that's not my tagline. I believe that's a friend of ours.
It is. It is a friend of the show. Vince, I'm putting up the graphic now. Travis, man, 7 on 7s, he was 10 for 11, and 11 on 11, he was 90% as well. Just lighting up the field, apparently. Like, he is unstoppable in practice. How excited are you about Jordan Travis this offseason?
I'm obviously really excited about that. And Norvell said something else today too, I think, that they caught, which was we're going to test the limits of some scoreboards. Did you hear that quote?
Oh, absolutely. I think I screenshot it and sent it to you. When I saw that, I'm like, well, okay, because the last time we did that, it was 2013.
That's and here you go. You're saying these words out loud, and most coaches are not going to say too much out loud for fear of stuff, coming back to haunt them. And Mike Norvell, he believes it. We've got the talent, we've got the depth, and the guys are all bought in. And if they test the limits of some scoreboards, I mean, that is for a fun season.
Yeah, and I will say this. I think it comes down to Mike Norvell and company. With a 6-6 type of roster, we're able to put up upper 20s on average. And then with a 9-10 win roster, we're able to put up mid 30s. So I think he's confident in knowing that we've only added some more chess pieces to the board, some more toys to play with. He really has a two dynamic tight ends. We have wide receivers for days, running backs for days, an amazing offensive line, a quarterback that can throw it. So, of course, if you had all those things, if I picked up a copy of NCAA 2013 and I went ahead and customized a roster and put every player from the national championship teams on one team, I should win by 30 to 40 or 50 points. So I think Mike Norvell knows, hey, man, on average, I really believe that we can average upper 30s, low 40s throughout the season.
Yeah, and if you look at the schedule, there aren't a lot of teams that are going to be able to, combat that. There are a couple, and the team's ability to, put some points on the board against those teams that have a defense. That's going to make or break the season, right? I think we can all look at the schedule and go, there are 8 games that we should win handily.
Yes.
There are another 2 that, are going to give us a little bit of, you're going to have to show something.
Yeah.
And then there are another 2 that are going to be barn burners till the very end. So yeah, let's test the limits of the scoreboard. I want to see it. I can't wait.
And listen, me and Vince will be the first one to point out if Florida State with this roster and it's healthy goes out and lays an egg against a Wake Forest or a Boston College, we'll be the first one to come on here and say, hey, not good. But I really just don't see that happening. in 2013, we had very few games that we were even in doubt on. I do think we'll have some games where at halftime we're, right neck and neck with LSU and Clemson being those two. But other than that, I see a whole lot of games where they're playing hangman on the sidelines.
Yeah. So what does it come down to then, Ryan? Is the defense better?
That's true.
Is the defense able to get some more stops and be able to, hold those teams that are those one or two teams that are going to be, the tricky games? Are they going to be able to hold them? And all reports out of the camp so far is the defense is looking great. The defensive backs, look more polished. They look like they're communicating better. They look like they actually know how to pass off in zone coverage, right? Those are all exciting things, and we just got to see it happen now.
For sure. And one thing that you won't find out about is injuries. Mike Norvell, the Jacksonville media, not the ones that are used to, covering Florida State or college in general, the local sports media here in Jacksonville was asking questions that a normal beat writer with Florida State would know not to ask about specific injuries. But the good news is, Vince, even though he made it clear he didn't want to have that conversation, he kind of did, because he said, I think, quote, there are no major injuries that we sustained, and that any people that are not out there today, it's, load management. So that tells me everything I need to know. He told you that no one's seriously injured, right?
That was a very funny interchange there.
Yeah, he almost walked out.
I think he was close to walking out, and then he caught himself understanding that the people that were crossing the line there were not, they were not the normal people, right? But yeah, and then he gave a little bit more. It's a very polished delivery after he kind of calmed himself down a little bit.
Yeah, and listen, hey, it's hot out there for Mike Norvell too. We know what he can do, and sometimes you come off and you get a question, and he's used to being interviewed by the people that know the rules, and so I think he went to make the move to walk away, and then went, oh, wait a minute, these are new people. I should give them a little grace and kind of explain things, and he did. And listen, the good news is I think we are injury, big problematic injury free. Jared Verse didn't practice, not a big deal. We've seen it, right? Like the for sure things. Why risk it? I mean, if they need a day off, I'm all for it, man. We're not 2 years ago or 3 years ago when everyone who's on the team has to be able to start. A lot of these guys can take a day off, and the two deep behind them are just fine.
Yeah, and it's more reps for the guys that need them, right?
Yeah.
And think about when they were trying to figure out, earlier this year, who was coming back, who was going to go pro, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure those conversations were had then. Listen, you're going to come back. We're going to load manage you. We're not going to beat your body up. Provided you come back in shape and you come back ready to work. And from everything we've read, everything we've seen, the video clips we've seen, those guys that have come back when maybe people thought they weren't going to come back, they've come back with a vengeance, man. And there is no need to beat those guys to death.
Right.
They're ready to play. You just have to keep them. You have to get them up to that line and keep them there, right? You don't want to overwork them, but you don't want them to be rusty too. It's a very, very narrow band there of trying to keep them in that
sure.
sweet spot.
Speaking of keeping someone in a sweet spot, Vince, I'm going to put the graphic up on here. Daryl Jackson's waiver was declined.
How was that the sweet spot?
We want to keep him here in Tallahassee in the sweet spot.
But
the sweet spot,
yeah.
the important thing here is that we thought, because I'm sure Florida State had probably already gone through the appeals process. And this was kind of the final ruling, for Daryl Jackson. But then out of nowhere, one Marco Rubio, local Florida senator, wrote a letter to the head of the NCAA and basically said, hey, listen, the right thing to do here, pretty much in all circumstances regarding family, is to let this kid play. And we hope that you reconsider your options. So I really think that we have a shot still to get Daryl Jackson on the field. I hope that they reconsider, and I hope that more senators start writing to really kind of push the NCAA's hand on saying, listen, if kids are going to see their family because they're sick, we need to go ahead and let them go. Did I lose you, Vince?
No, I'm still here. I was just trying to mute to make sure the road noise doesn't get bad.
You're all good. So what do you think about Marco Rubio stepping up and writing that letter?
I mean, I love it. Politics aside, I'm not promoting anybody, but that's that's the right thing to do. The right thing to do is for the NCAA to look at this not just from the family side. I mean, that to me that's logical, right? But how about from the timing side?
Yeah,
he transferred here under the guise of the old policies and procedures, and then
right.
they change them, a month and a half later or whatever it is, and now they're going to hold not just him, but what about all the other people that transferred? And now they're going to hold them to that new policy and standard. I mean, the NCAA just continues to year after year one up themselves in terms of silliness and just lack of awareness.
Yeah, read the room kind of, because listen, anyone who has a common sense or even knows someone who has had, a sick parent or a sick kid knows that that's most important. So if you need to be near family, let the kid play. That's not just Florida State. That's how we would be saying about anyone out there, any kid out there who was at any school that, relocated to be with their family. So I think it's the right thing to do, and I hope they do reconsider. I'm not sure they will, but I do hope that they do. Vince, is there anything else that we didn't touch on tonight that you want to bring up? I know you're on the road, kind of bringing your daughter to college right now. Do you want to? Is she in the car with you right now, Vince? I think we lost Vince, and he muted himself. But listen, when we're talking about waivers, just like Vince taking his daughter to college, Daryl Jackson needs to be allowed to play. So hashtag free Daryl Jackson.
Yes, but Big 12 Mafia, Moen Vision, those guys are really good follows. They got their finger on the pulse of it all. And just again, Ryan, thanks for getting the show going without me being there.
Absolutely, Vince. Be safe. I hope you get up there and let's get your daughter to college, and we'll see you next week on Garnet and Old. No inside info, no contacts, no problem. Go Knowles.
Go Knowles.